皆さん、こんにちは。早稲田大学教育学部英語英文学科のバックハウスと申します。今日は学科紹介の一環として、私が担当している Language, Culture and Cognition という科目について紹介したいと思います。どうぞよろしくお願いします。なお、この科目の主要言語は英語になりますので、これからは英語に変わります。So the name of the class is Language, Culture, and Cognition. And one of the things we'll be looking into is the possible relationships between language, particularly our first language, and how this influences how we see the world. For example, let's have a look at this one-time hit song on YouTube. What does the fox say? On the left, you have the original English lyrics, which are full of animal sounds. So the dog goes woof, the cat goes meow, the bird goes tweet, the mouse goes squeak, and so on. On the right, you can see a Japanese translation, and you can also see that it has very different animal sounds. Wang wang for the dog, nya nya for the cat. And just compare the English bird's tweet to the Japanese bird going pio pio. Now, does that mean perhaps that Japanese people hear animal sounds differently from people in English-speaking countries? This is one of many questions related to the theory of linguistic relativity, which holds that the structure of a given language affects how its speakers see the world. There's a weak version which says that language to some extent influences thought. And then there's also a strong version which says that language all but determines thought. This is commonly known as Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, named after Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Whorf, two American scholars who are commonly associated with this idea. Let's look at another more urban example. As you may recognize, this is a bilingual Japanese-English announcement in a Tokyo subway station. If we take a closer look at the English version first, we can see that it uses future tense. Train will arrive soon. Because the English language makes a basic distinction between things happening right now in the present and things to be happening soon. That means in the future. By contrast, the Japanese version is in present tense. Densha ga kimasu. Because the Japanese language does not make that distinction. Now, does that mean that Japanese and English speakers have different conceptions of time? Well, certainly not, I hope, but as I will show in this class, the idea of linguistic relativity is very much alive and kicking, and indeed does have a few exciting and quite controversial new insights on offer. Another question that we are dealing with in this class is the difficulty of languages. As you know, Japanese has this image of being a tremendously difficult language. But is that really so? Well, first off, we need to make a basic distinction between relative and absolute difficulty. Relative difficulty means that the difficulty of a given language you set out to learn depends on your first language. For example, there is no doubt that Japanese is much easier to learn for a native speaker of Korean, whose language is structurally very similar to Japanese, than say for a native speaker of English, which is very different. Likewise, it is much easier for a native speaker of German, like me, to learn English than for a native speaker of Japanese, because English just happens to be much closer to German than to Japanese. From a Japanese perspective, you could even claim that German and English are basically dialects of one another. But there is also an absolute difficulty to any given language. And here we must distinguish between the different linguistic levels, because each level comes with a different amount of difficulty. In the case of Japanese, there is absolutely no doubt that the writing system and also its intricate politeness language, keigo, is difficult, very difficult, to be sure. On the other hand, in comparison with other languages, we can say that things like pronunciation and grammar are relatively simple. Take grammar, for instance. Here is a comparison of a simple textbook sentence, 象は鼻が長い, with the same sentence in German. Elefanten haben einen langen Rüssel. Now, as you can see here, once we know the vocabulary, we need only 3 basic rules to put the Japanese sentence together. On the other hand, we need more than a dozen rules to arrive at a grammatically correct German sentence. So there's clearly more work to be done in the case of German, particularly if you are a non-native speaker. These are just 2 of a range of topics we'll be discussing in this class, and here is an overview. Each class consists of a lecture part interspersed with 2 or 3 group work sessions in which a given problem is discussed in more detail. This will help us keep a lively atmosphere with fruitful interactions between the students themselves and hopefully the students and me. I'm looking forward to seeing you around. Thank you.